Hello and welcome to Our Time. It's my great pleasure to say hello to the Right Honourable the Lord Mayor of Adelaide, Sandy Vershoor.
Hello, Malcolm.
How lovely to have you back again.
Yeah, it's lovely to be here. Thank you.
We've known each other for a long time, full disclosure.
Yes, very long time.
Since we were, probably about 10 years, I think, since we were 20. Is that right?
Yeah, I reckon I must be about 36, 37 by now.
Oh, okay, well, then.
Getting older. Anyway.
Sandy, it must have been a most amazing time to be the Lord Mayor of Adelaide.
Yeah, it has been. It's been great. So
much has happened. So many unusual things have happened.
Yeah, let's talk about a global pandemic.
Yes.
So it's very unusual for anybody who's been in office at any level of government over the last few years, because nobody knew that what we were walking into. And you know, I was actually talking to a friend today, and I just said, you know, it's almost like everybody's forgotten that it happened
very quickly,
or forgotten that we've still got this pandemic going on. But when we did the first lockdown in March 2020, nobody knew how long it was going to last. And I remember that I went into the office every day through that whole period, and there was nobody. It was honestly, it was like one of those Armageddon movies.
Well,
you know?
Ghost of the Town Hall.
Yeah, it really was. There was no one on the streets.
No, but did you become the ghost of the town hall?
No cars, no people on the streets. Everything closed, and you're waiting for the tumbleweed, you know, to come down the road. It was a really scary time, and we, of course, nobody knew. We all thought we were going to die. Like, it was just nobody knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, I suppose some people kept thinking, "Oh, it won't take that long; it'll all be good," and then it just sort of rolled on. But you'd have to have a great deal of experience in the past to sort of know how to cope with all this, because you've done so many different jobs. Let me rattle off a few, because you've been the Marketing and Development Director at the Adelaide Fringe, the Adelaide Festival of Arts. You've been the Associate Director of Arts Projects WAMAID. You've helped establish the Adelaide Film Festival. You've been the CEO of the Adelaide Fringe, the Executive Producer of the Festival of Ideas, the General Manager for the Adelaide City Council, the Executive Producer of Windmill Theatre, and the CEO of the Adelaide Festival. Is there anything you haven't done?
There's lots of things I haven't done, but
there's more than that, though.
Yeah, but
of that list of things.
Yeah. I went into the arts, and even though we'd done a lot of work, in way back in terms of
promoted stuff,
putting on those first shows.
Was it Humphrey Bear and Aladdin at the Hilton Hotel?
Yeah, that's right. And we did those first big kids shows.
Because there weren't that many places to do kids shows in those days.
And that was that was brand new.
Centre management before that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, centre management. God, you're taking me back then.
Yes.
Yeah, so
you know, when you look back on your life of all the different things you do or have done, everything sort of eventually streams together.
It does.
To become something that's often a very official position.
But it's also, when I went into, because I worked in the media for a while as well, but when I went into the festival, I felt like I'd found my tribe, and there were the people that, because you're used to artists and you're used to staging and everything that goes with it, and absolutely loved it. So I was there for 25 years, really.
But you realise how all these other people have to come together to make one common thing.
Yep.
And I suppose that's what council's like, in a way.
Oh, in a way.
In a way.
Council is a bit like that. So, interesting enough, when I finished at the Fringe, so I was the Fringe CEO for 4 years, and I'd never been anywhere long enough to have long service leave, so I decided to give myself a year off. And I'd also just finished my Masters of Arts in Creative Writing, so I was going to go and finish a book, and I lasted about 3 months, as you do. And then through one of the general managers at the council, she rang me and said, "Would you like to have a coffee?" And she asked me whether I would go and pull together essentially a cultural program at the Adelaide Council. And it was interesting. She goes, "There's no reason why you should say yes, but here's what we're trying to achieve." And it was fabulous. And I said, "Yeah, okay, I'll do that." It was a contract. And I went in, and from the outside, the council looks like this slow, lumbering beast, and it's so hard to get anything done, and you have to talk to so many people and everything. And inside, you get inside, and there's all these extraordinary people that are really passionate about what they do, and the breadth of what is delivered is mind-boggling. And
it's about the City of Adelaide.
And I just loved it. And I just thought they were amazing people.
Right.
They were all really dedicated, and all working for the better, the betterment of the city and the people in it. And I just thought that was amazing. So I left, when I finished my contract, and went and produced the Festival Ideas for a second time, because I'd done it a few years earlier. Which again is a fantastic space to be working in, because you're working with all these thought leaders and all of the cutting edge technology and everything.
People.
Yeah, amazing.
Yes.
Made me feel very dumb, but it's like just like the brain wattage in those rooms was incredible. But just being a lifelong learner, just the amount of information and the amount of knowledge and the amount of things that you had no idea about was brilliant. And then went back in as a general manager. So I had 5 or 6 programs underneath me, and again, it was just amazing to get things done. And
you were never never stood to be elected as a councillor.
I did later, but not at that time. Yeah, not
Right.
at that time, because I was really enjoying it. I was working with the council, but that's at the time that we introduced the small bars licences and closed streets, and did some fabulous things, which I'm still really proud of.
You turned the city into a more of an international city, I think.
Yeah.
It was all the other things that, drip-fed information that we got on the outside, like the Wi-Fi throughout the city, for example.
Yeah.
Like the old site at North Adelaide that's been a bit of an issue for a long time.
The old site. Do you know, my kids...
I'm trying not to say Le Cornu's.
No, Le Cornu's. So I actually said 88 O'Connell, and my son said, where's that? And I said, the old Le Cornu site. And he said, isn't that on Anzac Highway? Because I realised that
yes, of course.
he's not old enough to have ever known Le Cornu's on that site.
The curved windows,
I remember
so there
it,
was
but
no reflection.
as a Lily.
Yes, of course.
But I do remember going there, and that incredible window.
Yes.
But yeah, of course, that's been a empty site for 32 years or something.
It's one of those situations where the people that object the loudest are the ones that get heard the most and tend to hold things up the most without really considering what's best for the community as a whole.
Look,
Is that a fair comment?
well, there's a few people that, and I've met them, and a few of them are really lovely, and they're just, we had 16 guiding principles. We were able to deliver on 15, and the one that we couldn't because it wasn't financially viable was the height. And I understand and respect their point of view. It's just otherwise it would have been empty for another 30 years. And
yes.
So, there was a great majority of council, so it was 9-2 was the vote. As presiding member or as Lord Mayor, I don't get a vote unless it's a casting vote.
Yes, I understand that.
And so I'm spokesperson for all of the decisions of council. But it's, in that one in particular, we knew that we couldn't deliver on the height, which was one of the difficult things and one of the difficult decisions we had to make if we were going to go ahead with something.
But it's also about turning the city into an international city. I mean, the old saying was Adelaide, city of churches. Well, it isn't anymore. Really, it's Adelaide, the city of the arts, really, if anything.
Well, I've always thought of it that way.
Yeah.
So a lot of my focus has always been on what is the cultural life, but what is the experience that you want, and you just read out a bit of a list of the stuff that I've done, but it really is how to apply some of that to a city. So you use a city as a cultural landscape, and what is the experience you want people to have. And I have this thing about, I want an artist in my street. I want an artist in my building. They bring a different energy and a different vibrancy to the places that you're in. And the more that we can do that, the more I feel happy. Because we're a UNESCO City of Music, so we've got an international...
I didn't know that.
No, so we've got an international designation, which is as a City of Music. And so... if you think of that and you think, well, what would that mean? If you're truly a city of music, what does that actually mean? And how do you use that as
music
a focus?
Everywhere.
Yeah, so you've got everything, because it's a spectrum, right? So from classical, baroque music right through to, pop and hip hop and everything else. And so we, that was one of the lenses, how do you amplify that? How do you use that designation to attract more people that are part of the music creation. Because the other part, of course, is, you know, the videos and the recordings and everything that goes with the songwriting. And we've had some extraordinary musicians that have come out of Adelaide. So,
absolutely right. I mean, in the arts, we've had some extraordinary people just across the board. And talking of extraordinary, we've just got to take a short break and we'll be back in a tick. So we're talking to the Right Honourable, the Lord Mayor of Adelaide, Sandy Vershoor. Talking to you, the Right Honourable, for me seems funny because I've known you for so long.
Yeah.
I know you're honourable though, but the protocol in council, in fact in all levels of government, is that a difficult thing to wade your way through? Because you have to go to so many things. Like I saw you on telly attending the funeral service for the Queen here in Adelaide. I've seen you on so many things. I've seen you at the Carols by Candlelight. I've seen you everywhere.
Yeah.
Do you get any private time?
Yeah, you do. It's, I mean, my schedule, and I suppose it's because I did come from festivals. I'm used to working sort of fairly long hours. But, you know, a normal day for me is about 10 hours, and then I might have other things on top of that. But you make it work, and so, you know, I would do things like once a month. I go, okay, that's my weekend off. I'd go down the beach, and I'd delegate to my deputy or other council members so that I would get a break. And it's also about, you know, really it's about self-care and making sure that you look after your well-being. And
you've got to know the signs when I think I'm doing too much, like your lips start to chafe or whatever. That's mine.
Is that yours?
What's yours?
I think I just get tired. I tend to. I know when I'm tired when I sort of come home and I literally haven't seen my family for 3 or 4 days, and I sit on the couch and
you're gone.
And it's like, okay, probably.
You see,
probably
we just expect people in these positions just to be non-stop. Yeah. Really, you just expect they're going to keep going.
Yeah, it is a bit non-stop, but it's also very energising. Like you're doing. I mean, with the exception of the funeral service for the Queen, which there was a few protocols that we had to do, and which, you know, I was very privileged to be part of, and you know, she had an extraordinary legacy, and we moved very, very quickly, and the state government did all of those ceremonies.
But also for women. She really set a benchmark for women, of which you've continued.
Yeah.
When you think about it.
She was fairly amazing, and if you think about it, I've never known anything but Queen, of course, and so it was interesting. Someone else said to me that it was a little bit weird to hear them singing "God Save the King" because you know, that's. And I'm old enough that we used to have our school assemblies, and they raised the flag, and you'd sing "God Save the Queen." You know, when I was
you can't be that old because that would make you close to my age.
No, we still did it at assemblies.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
we did too. Yes, I remember that well.
When I was in primary school.
But of course, when you leave primary school, those things finish, and I suppose they could have continued for years afterwards, and I wouldn't have known.
Yeah. So
I used to play the record. We had the national anthem, which was, of course, "God Save the Queen."
Yeah. So and I remember that.
Well, that's interesting too. The fact that we've really grown up not only as a country but also Adelaide as a city, because there's so much now that the Adelaide city actually does. That probably the little things have added up over the years, and we've probably just come to accept them as the norm. But when you think back to what Adelaide was like, say, in the 50s and early 60s, it was none of the excitement that happens in the city.
Yeah, but all cities have evolved in that way, and the only thing I wish they hadn't done, of course, was, you know, dig up all the tram lines, because now we're going to try and put them all back.
Yes.
But,
has that been a nightmare to oversee?
That's not us. That's state government. Okay. It's just the disruption of when the tram lines are going down.
But I love looking down
like
King William Street from Victoria Square with all the trees when everything's lovely and green.
It is beautiful.
It's such a pretty city with the town hall sitting there and the old GPO.
You know, it's one of the things that
Sorry for all the people watching in Melbourne, but we do love where we live.
Yeah. Well, it is an extraordinary city. So we've got 760 hectares of parklands around the city, sort of in a figure 8, so the CBD itself and then North Adelaide. And, there is actually a parklands trail. It's about 18 kilometres, and which, you know, I've walked sections of it and I've walked it. And
You've got to get out and do more.
It's so extraordinary though, but you are going from, the landscape just changes. It just keeps changing and changing and changing. And, you know, I would invite anybody to do that if they, it's really quite beautiful to go from forest to wetlands to, you know, sporting fields to, you know, it's just amazing. I love it.
Well, with things like, for example, the Fringe and the Adelaide Festival of Arts, you know, the city is so busy during that period of time. And now the car race is coming back and all of the other little events that happen throughout the year. It is an exciting place to live.
Yeah, we've got a couple of new ones. One that we just had, which was bringing back a fashion week. But the one that's on at the moment is Wellfest. And of course, again, because of COVID, it's brought much more attention to people's well-being. And what we found during COVID is that, you know, normally you get about, you know, 8 or 9 million people that would use the parklands over a 12-month period, and this shot up to 10 or 11 because people were going for walks, taking their kids, taking their dogs.
Because it's all they could really do.
And it was fantastic because all of these people discovered the parklands and got into new routines. And but Wellfest is really about, you know, if you want to feel better, so better sleep, better health, better fitness.
Just go back a step. So it's called Wellfest?
Yeah, Wellfest, yeah.
W-E-L-L? Fest?
Yeah.
F-E-S-T?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wellfest
Where do we
Adelaide.
find out about Wellfest?
Oh, you can just Google it or go to Experience Adelaide, which is the website that you can connect. And it's fantastic. It's a whole lot of all sorts of different things. And so some of it's about nutrition, some of it's about beauty and health, and you know, some of it's about exercise, whether it's yoga, tai chi, or
But
gyms.
this isn't just for people living in the city.
No,
of
it's
course.
for anybody.
It's
can come.
for anybody. Yeah.
So it's which we did the first one last year, but there was still a lot of restrictions on it at the time.
Of course.
And it's an open access platform, which is similar to the Fringe. So,
right. Who came up with this?
I think Ian Hill, who's he's the managing director of the Adelaide Economic Development Agency, which is part of council, and I think, you know, we'd done a lot of work at the council around wellbeing. In fact, we've got a manager of wellbeing at the council, and we made October the month of wellbeing, and we've even got a dashboard, and the dashboard looks at how people are feeling, which you can do at any time. See what people's level of satisfaction is, or whether they're happy, or
do you type something?
Yeah, no, it's all done on surveys.
Oh, okay,
and,
yeah. Okay. Oh, right.
And we
you.
connect their wellbeing to things like arts and culture.
Right.
Right, because there's all that data that shows you the benefit of arts in terms of health and recovery, and which was real data that comes out of hospitals and come out of medical science, and so there's some fantastic science behind it. And, you know, there's even, you know, which I'm still waiting for some doctor to write me a prescription to say you need to go and spend, you know, 2 hours in an art gallery, but apparently they are doing prescriptions overseas.
How wise.
To go and immerse yourself in an art form.
I think people forget that these things exist and they're there for the good of the people, not just to put a painting in, for example.
But, you know, if you listen to a beautiful piece of music, and it doesn't matter what your taste is, if you listen to a piece of music that you love, you feel joy, don't you? You feel uplifted, yeah. So, you know, there's all of these different things, and
yes, perhaps we've been a society that's been very much schooled just to work and do mundane things, and we forget the beauty of life is the art of life, really.
Yeah, it's that thing where, you know, when things get hard, and which, you know, life can throw things at you, as we know, is just to find those things that give you joy, and you know, you have to make sure you have joy in your life. So, as you do with laughter, but you know, it's things. What's the things that give you joy?
Yeah, that's true.
Beauty gives me a lot of joy.
Well, we'll have to have a bigger comedy festival too then, as well. I love some of the artworks that have travelled into the city. Have just been extraordinary, and ways of experiencing art that we've never had a chance to before, for example. But it's also the diversity of things like the Fringe, the diversity of the other festivals that occur around that time. Oh, sorry. We have to take another break. We'll be back in a tick. We're talking to Sandy Vershoor, who is the Lord Mayor of Adelaide. That's pretty amazing that you've been the Lord Mayor of Adelaide, but all of those things you did before have sort of led up to this challenge. Well, do you see it as a challenge?
It does have its challenges.
Wearing the heavy jewellery, perhaps.
Yeah, God, that is heavy too. But it's very rewarding, and I've always loved seeing the city as a whole, so and watching it change and things like that. And I've spent most of my working life in the city,
but also providing circumstances, situations, events, and things that the whole community can be a part of.
Yeah.
I mean, all your background was pulling people together.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things people don't see, of course, because I work very closely with state government, very closely with federal government, very closely with the other local governments, and particularly the adjoining councils, and nobody sees that work. And what we did is, even on the work we're trying to do with Main Streets, we brought all those groups together. So the residents, the property owners, the traders groups, and then depending where we're working in the city, we might have licensing commission or SAPOL or an organisation, so that we can actually work from the ground up. Because there's a thing called placemaking, which I love, and I was part of the placemaking team and the placemaking strategy several years back. And it really is, instead of doing things to people, doing things with them. Yeah. Yeah, and it's a really different starting point. It takes a bit longer, but the outcomes are so much better and so much richer.
Yes, but it's all about making people's lives better, isn't it? Really?
Well, it's about the experience you want to have. We are so lucky here.
Oh,
we are so lucky.
Don't have to tell me.
And
I know.
People just forget how what an amazing place
Actually,
this is
to live.
It's so
easy to complain, but for most people, it's really hard to compliment.
Yeah.
When
people do send you something, which I do occasionally get, a letter or an email or something, I always say thank you so much for taking time, because, and you can pass it on to the teams, because it's never one person. As you said,
exactly.
you have to bring so many people to make these things happen.
Well, I guess that's the word council sort of means exactly that. It's pulling everybody together for a common goal. Yeah. Have you got a bucket list?
I do. There's some weird things on my bucket list. One is singing with a rock and roll band, but we might get to that. And of course, we were talking earlier, I'm very proud that I'm the third Lord Mayor in history of the City of Adelaide. So,
female.
And female Lord Mayor, thank you. And as the governor, so Frances Adamson is the third governor for South Australia.
It's bewildering to me that it's never happened before, but there you go.
And I love the fact that it should become more and more common. We just want it to be a natural thing. And
it's ridiculous that it isn't, quite frankly, but there you go.
We'll get there.
I guess. And that's part of, it's part of women like you, having been across so many different, in a way, disciplines of life, to provide so much for so many people, and pretty much unsung in many ways, I think, because, again, like you say, not everybody is going to write you that letter to say thanks. No. Not everyone is going to stop you on the street and say, hey, you did a good job. They're more inclined to say, hey, what'd you do to the core news site? Sort of thing.
Local government is very local. It is the closest level of government to the community.
Well, of course, that's what it's there for.
And so, you have when you're working on a capital city, you have to do from the smallest things, fixing the footpath and the verge and the trees, to the very big things which make people want to live in your city and want to be part of it. And also, with my kids and everything, I want them to find their life and their careers here as well.
Of course.
So,
we want to live and work here because we love the place.
Don't want
but
it
the
to be
city's doing this now.
Yeah, I don't want it to be a mega city though. Who wants that? I think
that's true.
Really spoilt because of our size. And yes, we do need some growth. That's a natural thing. But you have to have sustainable growth, and you have to make sure that you look after everybody in the meantime.
And leave the spaces available so you can enjoy them.
Absolutely.
Sandy, it's been just lovely talking to you once again.
Good to catch up.
Good luck with the future.
Thank you.
I hope your bucket list comes to reality. How can we organise a rock band? What sort of music do you want to sing exactly?
I don't know.
We'll talk about this. We'll talk about this in a tick. Look, thank you so much. It's been lovely to see you
Pleasure.
again. And it's been great to have your company again. So until next time on Our Time, keep yourself nice till then. Bye.